Next, we have Simón.
Yes, to close, I would like to mention that internationalism is actually quite present in these Latin American processes, and we have seen something that is very exciting. For example, when in Chile, in Santiago, we saw demonstrators with Bolivian and Colombian flags in support of the Colombian general strike or of the Bolivian people in face of the military coup. Also big demonstrations in Argentina in support of the Bolivian and the Chilean people and so on. So I think that this is something that is very, very important in these latest struggles. And from the perspective of US activists, it would be important to take note of it because there are slogans and the programmatic issues that can be raised by internationalist activism in the US. For example, regarding Haiti, the UN spent $7 billion over a almost 15-year military occupation, while most of the people in Haiti don't have regular access to drinking water or to electricity. So I think that to support the demand of annulling the foreign debt and also reparation for US occupation in the 20th century and support for coups and dictatorships, or France's extortive debt imposed on Haiti after independence, or the pulling out of the core group, which is a sort of a neo-colonial apparatus in which the US, together with the European Union and the OAS participate. Those are important demands that can be raised by US activism. Regarding Venezuela, to oppose US sanctions, which deepen the misery which has been imposed by Maduro's regime, but at the same time engaging with independent left organizations such as the Freedom and the Socialism Party, or worker activists such as the General Secretary of the Oil Workers Federation, Jose Bodas, the teachers who are on strike against starvation wages, and so on. To denounce, for example, that US oil companies are paying $10 a month to workers in Venezuela, taking advantage of the tremendous anti-worker repression imposed by Maduro. I think that also to take into account that the struggle against capitalist destruction of the environment and the global warming, in the case of Latin America, almost all countries have the issue of dealing with huge imperialist companies such as Barrick Gold, Gold Reserve, oil companies such as Chevron, and others. And there is indigenous, peasants, and popular opposition and resistance to this looting presence of big American companies. So to give a voice and to support these struggles is also, I think, part of the struggle against the destruction of the environment. Of course, if there were a triumph, a revolutionary triumph in any of these rebellions, it would have a huge impact, a positive impact in the need for a revolutionary regroupment of organizations. But I think that we still have now issues on which we can advance. Some struggles in which the campist logic of Stalinism and reformism is challenged, such as Syria, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Iran, in which imperialist intervention can be challenged, but through the perspective and putting oneself in the shoes of the workers, the people, the women in those countries, and not supporting authoritarian capitalist regimes. For those of us in the left that do have agreements on these issues, and I think that we have the responsibility to advance in conversations in order to develop united front, united action. And I think the current wave of revolutionary actions by the masses in the world is a favorable context for revolutionary regroupment.
Thank you, Simón. Jaime, you're next.
I would like to deal first with a question or the points that have been raised around the relationship with environment movement. You have very probably seen that the main leaders or main representatives of the Friday school strikes have recognized that this 6 million people demonstration that took place worldwide, they recognized that this was not enough. So, but everybody recognizes the urgency of dealing with the environmental crisis. The solution to this conundrum would be to have a synergy between these movements, which we are seeing not only in Latin America, but some of the other speakers mentioned France, for example, the synergy with these movements, with these social movements, these environmental movements, with the social movements. We have to think in terms of the United Front being not only a workers' united front. I know that I clearly know that the precise definition of the United Front, the original definition was the United Front within the workers' movement. Legacy we have from the Third International. The main tactical legacy we have from the Third International is this United Front concept. But today we have to widen it. We have to think in the sense that there are wider movements that exist, and that we need to begin to make synergy one with the other. So that's going to be the way that we are going to really make a transformation that can begin to roll back this climate crisis. I'm not going to go much more into detail in this, but we need that synergy. Number two, we cannot invoke movements simply because we want movements to come up. It's not a question of will. I mean, it's a question more like thinking that in order to surf, you need a wave. So that's how we have to think. And the basic idea here is that this idea of the United Front, which we have to work around it, work on it in the heart of the movement. We must have a complement, which is the strategy. That strategy is party building. This process is very, very, very incipient. In my opinion, these waves we have today in Latin America are only the beginning. This is only the first wave that we are going to see. We are entering into a period of destabilization, and not only in Latin America. You can see that we are having this in the rest of the world, and we don't know how far the rift in the American ruling class will affect the social situation there. But we must keep our eyes open. But that will instill more that will inject more instability. This rift of the American ruling class is going to inject more instability in the world. So these are the components. Think of it also in this way. No, we are not seeing Soviets right now in Latin America. I mean, hopefully we will see them, but we're not seeing them. We are not there yet. We are seeing the weakening or some hesitations in the repressive forces, but we still have not seen a big crack in the repressive forces that would open the way for a revolution. We are far from that, but be aware, these are only the first waves. We can forge a new generation of fighters, of builders. We must be the best builders of these movements. and to understand that we have to do a very fine job. We cannot be arrogant. We cannot.
End of time.
We have this tradition. We have the answers to everything. So that would be my final message.